All right, time to hit you with 2 fall baits for the drawdown. Yeah, a lot of times in the fall, if we don't have any hurricanes coming through your area, you're not going to have a ton of rain. Lakes are going to be starting to come down a little bit. Even lakes that are not flood control lakes, they're still going to be down a little bit. So I'm going to give you my first 2 baits. I did the early fall cool down first 2 baits before. This one's going to be a little bit different. This is when things are starting to cool off, like in Virginia, this part of the country, North Carolina. It's when that water temperature breaks down below that 70-degree mark. You know, you get in the upper 60s, around 70. That's the kind of time of year we're talking about. Things are starting to cool down. A lot of people thinking about this over here, this these old bucks, old whitetail bucks. You're starting to think about that. But if that's not part of your game plan, you want to go hit the water. Here's your first 2 baits. So number one, we're going to start with topwater. I gave you the walk-in bait for the early fall. I still like the walk-in bait at this time of year, absolutely. But for some reason, as that water starts to cool down, they start to eat a plopper style bait much, much better. This is just, you know, just kind of a shad looking pattern. It's got that little flash in there. Bone, of course, is always a good choice. I'm going to replace my treble hooks on there with number 3 Gamakatsu round bends. No issues there. One other little tip is I'll put an extra split ring on the back. And this is also a Gamakatsu G-Finesse, one of the new feathered trebles that they have, and that's a number 2 size, which is actually the same as a number 3 on the round bends. But that thing is a sticky sharp, and it's got that nice mylar flash in there. I like that. Gives you a little pop in there. But I'm going to be throwing that on either 50 or 60 pound Sunline X Plasma. Throw that thing on braid. Please, please, please throw it only on braid. Do not throw it on mono unless you want to lose fish or you don't want fish to get it very well. I've got that on a 7.3 medium heavy Cashin Icon worm jig rod. It's got a moderately soft tip, but that bait, that's the 110. 130 is also good. The little small ones are good for like spotted bass lakes or ponds or something like that. The little ones, the 75 sometimes can play on bigger bodies of water if they're just kind of acting funny. But for me, the 110 is my go-to. 130 can definitely work, especially around lakes that have some sparse grass in it where you're really trying to call those fish up. You really want to have a little more commotion. A little later in the fall, I'm going to go more to the 130 than the 110. It just seems like it triggers them, that bigger profile triggers them a little bit better. But then just a good high-speed quality reel on there so you can fire that thing out there about a country mile. One other tip on the topwater, on the plopper stuff, watch your water levels. If your water level is dropping substantially in like a day or two, it might spook them a little bit on that shallow stuff. So if your water's relatively stable or just like slowly draining down, you know, like an inch or two every day or two, may not be enough to affect them. But if it drops like a foot over the course of a couple days or a day, that probably will spook them, may make that bite no good. So you'll have to go to the second choice, which is right here. My second choice, I'm gonna give you A and B. So for lakes without grass, I'm going shaky head. Shaky head is a great way to go. That's the Missile Baits Warlock jig head. If I'm fishing a little bit deeper, I'm gonna go a little heavier like that. If I'm gonna fish around docks or around the bank, I'm probably gonna go to about 1/8 of an ounce. That seems to be the way to go. That is Blueback Secret, a really, really good color right there. But I may mix up the colors a little bit, try some different stuff. I've still got June bug from where I was just fishing recently in the fall. June bug, and I was catching fish. But that is definitely, June bug seems to be more of a summertime color on some of the clear water stuff. If you're in Florida, June bug's an all year color, if you know what I'm saying. But that is probably how I'm gonna go there. If the lake has a little more grass, your shaky head, not gonna be as good in grass. So that's why I'm gonna give you a 2B. The 2B is a Ned rig, but this Ned rig is a little bit different. It's a Ned ball head, this normal Ned head. but I've taken the Missile Baits Baby D-Bomb and Hillbilly Magic, and I've cut all the appendages off, and it is a smoking little Ned bait right there. Sweet little Ned bait. So you can take that bad boy and fish it just like you would a Ned rig, and it sails and it glides a lot more than a normal Ned bait. So you know, bait fish in the fall, we're talking about doing all that kind of crazy stuff. Take that bigger profile, and it's going to sit on top of that grass. That bigger bait, that wider bait, will sit more on top of the grass like that, and not get bogged down in the grass as much, or even rock for that matter. If you're fishing around some rock, it won't get bogged down in the grass. Then you can just, you know, get it in a little bit of that grass and just kind of pop it, or just let it hit a little bit of that rock, and then you can kind of pop it free, and that thing will kind of dart up and float down. That's a little trick for you. I should have even put that in a sole video of a trick, showed you a little bit more about it, but that's probably my 1-2 punch in the fall. One other tip on the shaky head: if you're going to be fishing around rock, I have found this Sunline Marabushi. I like saying it, Marabushi. It's a new leader material they have. It's camouflage looking color. It's got different color stripes. You know, they're about a foot long, green, clear, brown. That's not the cool part. The cool part is it's really, really hard. So I usually use FC Sniper for my leader. Use it for years and years and years and years. But that Marabushi, I started trying it. It's a tick thicker per pound test. I mean, just a fraction. It's not like one whole. It's not a whole, you know, line size up. It's not like 8 is 10 and 10 is 8 and 10 is 12. No, not like that. It's like 8.5 diameter wise, but it's much harder. So if you're around a lot of stuff, abrasion resistance wise, like if you're fishing a shaky head around rock, it is a very, very good choice. In all my testing this year, this thing, very abrasion resistant. It's slightly stiffer than the FC Sniper, so I'm probably not going to go to it as a go-to drop shot leader. I still want that suppleness of the FC Sniper for my action of the worm, especially the magic worm, which is what is on here. So just a nice little tip right there. And of course, I'm going to throw it on a spinning reel, 7 foot most of the time. Cash and Icon. This is one of their spinning models. This is the 7.3 fast medium. So that's what that is. That is a very, very good shaky head. The micro jig rod works great as well. Do that one as well. But then I'm going to probably have either 12 or this is 16-pound PE Siglon right here, which is fine. But I usually use the 12-pound X Plasma. I had this left over from fishing up north for some techniques up there. But then, you know, 8-pound is kind of my go-to on the shaky head there. So if anybody has any questions, any other go-to baits for the fall fishing, as it starts to cool down, you get around that 70-degree mark for most of the country. Super south, a little bit different. I promise you that plopper will work down in the deep south too as well. When that water starts to cool down a little bit, they start feeding up on top. A lot of those bait fish start gathering up, and then it's you know, party time excellent on that top water. But if anybody has any other suggestions for the middle part of the country, you guys up north, things are starting to cool down. Might be a little bit different, might not be as much on that plopper, but if you get around some largemouth, I bet you they'll truck that thing as well. And then the shaky head works kind of everywhere, but Ned rig might be a little bit more my choice. If we go up north a little bit more, those fish start cruising the shallows a little bit more than they have been as it starts to cool off. So those are your suggestions for the first 2 baits for the fall season, and a little bit on the drawdown. Thanks.